David Brock was a huge supporter of Hillary Clinton back in 2016. And he has been salty about the fact that here at the Young Turks, during the primaries, we did what people in the media should do. Do analysis of the candidates who are running and decide who's progressive in their policy ideas, who isn't so progressive, which policies we like, which policies we don't like. We're upfront, we're honest about our political perspective. David Brock and people like David Brock have been bitter about that and continue to be so. So today, David Brock puts out an op-ed titled, "Democrats, Let's Not Eat Our Own." Okay, sounds good, sounds very civil, sounds like he wants us to all get along and have a conversation. And so he goes on this long diatribe about how it's unacceptable to attack Democratic candidates and that it's okay to foster an environment of debate, but it's not okay to attack fellow Democratic candidates in a way that can be then utilized by Donald Trump in the general election. And then he says the following: "The Young Turks, a news organization that prominently supports Sanders' candidacy, disseminated a false narrative about shadowy Democratic elites conspiring against the senator in their coverage of his recent town hall." So let's stop for a second before I read the rest of that, okay? Did we ever say anything about CNN conspiring with these operatives?
Nope.
No, we did a lengthy video, which David Brock should probably check out before he writes this ridiculous commentary about us. And what we said was, these comments are fine, these questions are fine. In fact, a lot of these individuals ask great questions, but CNN purposefully misidentified these individuals who asked the questions as American University student or mother of two. Come to find out, we then later find out that these people are either working in their state Democratic parties. One of them was an intern for a lobbying group in Washington, D.C. And so my point is, and this is very simple, it's journalistic ethics 101. It is your responsibility as a journalistic news organization to be as transparent as possible about the individuals who are taking part in any type of political event, any type of news story. Misidentifying them and hiding the fact that they're political operatives is problematic, period.
So now, this is greatly ironic because he's accusing us of doing something that isn't true, when in fact he himself already in that sentence that Anna read, and there's more to come, has said two things that aren't true. That we prominently support Bernie Sanders' candidacy. No, we prominently support progressives, and we don't hide that. Our slogan is "Home of Progressives." But right now, Elizabeth Warren is a great progressive, and we point out her wonderful policies. By the way, when other candidates have great progressive policies, we support it and are enthusiastic in our support. For example, Cory Booker did wonderful work on criminal justice reform, and we talked about it and gave him tremendous credit for it. When people sign up for Medicare for All or Green New Deal, we love that, if they actually mean Medicare for All and Green New Deal. And it is, yes, our job to figure out if they actually mean it. If they say Medicare for All, but then they turn around and say, well, I didn't mean that, I meant Medicare buy-in. Well, those are two different policy proposals. Our job is to tell you that. For some reason, the mainstream media goes, oh no, it's all the same thing. But no, wait, it's not the same thing. Who's spreading false narratives? Right? Those are two different policy positions, and our job is to point that out. So no one, this network has never taken a position on it. Our individual hosts take positions eventually on different candidates, and we don't hide the ball on that. But right now, none of our hosts have even taken a position on any of the candidates. Some of our hosts outwardly like other candidates, okay? And by the way, we all like all the candidates for different reasons. Inslee does great work on the environment. But we're not going to then say someone who says, hey, I'm against Medicare for All. Oh, I bow down to him and I agree with him. I don't. I'm for Medicare for All. And I'm clearly telling you that. But for him to say that the network supports Bernie Sanders alone in his candidacy is just empirically not true. If you're not gonna watch the show, then don't put out false statements. And then to say that we talked about shadowy Democratic elites who picked the people who were asking the questions, we never said that.
No such thing.
So that's two lies. Two lies in the first sentence.
And by the way, so I have a real problem with Democrats coming after us for saying very accurate things about CNN. First off, CNN announces that it's gonna hire a Republican operative, right, Sarah Uygur, to have editorial control over the election coverage, the upcoming 2020 election coverage. You don't think that's problematic? Of course that's problematic. So we bring that up, we fight and make sure that our audience knows about this, but more importantly, that there's additional pressure for CNN to change course. And guess what? CNN changed course. Now, we can't take full credit for that, obviously. I don't know if we've had any influence. But the most important thing is that a political operative does not have editorial control at CNN, right? So now she's gonna be a contributor, that's fine. But then when we call out CNN for misidentifying individuals asking questions at the town hall, that was a legitimate criticism. Any journalistic expert in ethics will tell you that. And guess what? CNN put out a statement confessing that they did the wrong thing. So who's wrong here? Is it us or is it you, David Brock, who just completely lied about what we had said in the first place? So I wanna give you the statement from CNN. A CNN spokesperson spoke to the New York Post and said the following: though we said at the beginning of the town hall that the audience was made up of Democrats and independents, we should have more fully identified any political affiliations. Okay, so first of all, of course we're gonna assume that people in the audience are Democrats, but no one's gonna assume that one is an intern for a DC lobbyist, or another individual owns his own political PR firm, or that other people asking questions are actual leaders within the Democratic Party in their own state. Now again, their questions were fine. All I'm saying, and all we were saying, is that they should be identified for full transparency, period.
Yes, we never said they were malicious, and in fact, we asked for equally tough questions for all the candidates and for clear identification. So now, given that you just heard the quote from CNN acknowledging that they were wrong about that and we were right, and by the way, that's 2 times we helped to correct CNN when they appeared to be doing things that did not help progressives. So if for the entire Democratic Party, you're welcome, okay? But we don't get a welcome, we get these attacks. Let's read the rest of David Brock's quote.
They did opposition research on Sanders's questioners, impugning their motives by pointing to an internship one of them had done, and the composition of the board of directors of a nonprofit that another one of the questioners once worked for. This type of conspiracy mongering hurt us in 2016 and will again in 2020. You wanna know, David Brock, what hurt us in 2016? The DNC doing anything and everything they could to manipulate the outcome of the Democratic primaries. Because let me tell you something, when you have Bernie Sanders supporters find out about what the DNC is doing, and then you demand that all of those Bernie Sanders supporters tuck tail and vote for Hillary Clinton, you think that they're gonna do that? Of course they're not gonna do that. They were angry. They were angry by the actions of the Democratic establishment. They were angry about the manipulation. And that's the lesson that you failed to learn. That's the lesson that establishment Democrats failed to learn. And I find it hilarious when they point to us and blame us simply for doing our jobs in analyzing who these candidates were, what they really stood for, what their upsides and downsides were. And I'm so tired of people telling me specifically, right, who I need to support. Because his op-ed was really a veiled attempt to demand that we support whoever the establishment decides needs to be the candidate. No, we're not playing ball, okay? And if you wanna fight, you wanna play these games, I'm ready, we're ready. I'm not gonna sit here and allow this clown to put out this fake narrative about us and what we're doing.
Okay, so let's continue. He says they did opposition research for Sanders, and then later talks about conspiracy mongering. Do you have any evidence that we were doing opposition research for a candidate? No, you don't, because we weren't. When you actually investigate the facts of a situation, that is called journalism. Now, why does he assume that it's oppo research? Because that's what he's done his whole life. He was a Republican operative who did oppo research against the Clintons. Then he turned and became a Clinton operative who did oppo research against progressives. And what does he do when he does opposition research? He gives it to journalists, and the journalists print it without ever disclosing that it was opposition research.
That's right.
So since he has been guilty of this his whole career, he assumes we do it. No one from the Sanders team told us to do that. we looked at and thought, hey, that's weird. It appears that these people are not necessarily what CNN labeled them to be. By the way, they didn't, the person who's an intern didn't raise their hand and misrepresent themselves. CNN mislabeled them, right? So that's called journalism. What you do in Oppo research and then planting it with your buddies in the mainstream media is called Oppo research. And then to turn around to say our facts that were proven 100% right is conspiracies, while he launches conspiracy after conspiracy, is hilarious. In fact, we're gonna get to one of those that he did in 2016. But understand the whole point of the article. Remember, it's titled Democrats, Let's Not Eat Our Own. And then he viciously attacks us with a completely false narrative in the article, and then goes, what? You see how the Young Turks and every other Bernie, anyone who might consider supporting Bernie Sanders, any other progressive, should never ever criticize our candidates. And so
that's right.
The way that they criticize progressives is they do Oppo research, they plant it in the media, and then the media runs it, and so then they don't have their fingerprints on it, and they go, well, I didn't attack anyone. Now you see David Brock screwed up here because he put his name on it, okay? So this is what he normally has his friends do. And they write the op-ed and say, oh yeah, anyone who's progressive like Young Turks, homo progressives is bad. And then they smear you with lies, etc. right? Now Brock put his fingerprints on it, but normally he doesn't. Although there is, again, we're gonna get to the case where he famously did so in 2016. And then if we're open and honest and we come out on air, I mean, he sounds like a conspiracy theorist like Mr. Reagan who did that video on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez the other day. Oh, the Young Turks secretly do this. Then how come we said it on air? Okay, it's not much of a secret if you broadcast it. We are honest, you are dishonest, which leads us back to 2016 since you opened up these can of worms.
So in 2016, it was no surprise to anyone, or it's no surprise to anyone today, that there were paid bots all over social media, particularly on Twitter, and it was almost night and day. All of a sudden, if you were a Bernie Sanders supporter, you would see this giant group of Twitter users attacking you and calling you all sorts of names, you're a Bernie bro, defaming you. And so then a story comes out by the Daily Beast. It was written by Ben Collins. The title is Hillary PAC spends $1 million to correct commenters on Reddit and Facebook.
Okay, wait. So those aren't real people. Those are people who are paid. They spent $1 million. You know what they're called? There's another word for them. They're called trolls. They're paid operatives, political operatives from David Brock's group who went to attack progressives online. So I believe that would be attacking other candidates. And you did it with fervor and you did it with donor money. And now you're gonna turn around and say, oh golly gee, I would never attack anyone. And I can't believe that anybody on the progressive side would ever dare criticize the policies of my chosen candidates who you must bow your head to. No, we do not agree.
So I'm gonna read from this piece because it's important to either refresh your memory if you already knew about it, or let people know about the kind of games losers play as they're losing, because they can't win based on ideas or policies. They have to win based on manipulation, which is what the DNC attempted to do in the last election. And is it okay for me to bring that up, David Brock? Am I losing my integrity by letting the audience know the facts of what happened in 2016? Let me give you the details. Citing lessons learned from online engagement with Bernie bros, a pro-Hillary Clinton super PAC is pledging to spend $1 million to push back against users on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Instagram. Correct the Record's Barrier Breakers project boasts in a press release that it has already addressed more than 5,000 people that have personally attacked Hillary Clinton on Twitter. The PAC was created in May of 2015 when it was spun off from the American Bridge Super PAC, which was run by longtime Hillary and Bill Clinton supporter David Brock. So this is the guy attacking us. And you can understand why he's bitter. He doesn't want people like us criticizing Hillary Clinton. He doesn't want people like us, doing a fair analysis of the candidates from a progressive perspective. And by the way, in his recent op-ed, he argues that all of the candidates running right now in the Democratic Party are progressives.
Hilarious. Hilarious. All right, so look, you guys judge on your own who you think is the honest actors. So during the 2016 race, as you saw for yourself, if you were watching back then, Anna and I had a long disagreement about whose education policy was better. I was on Hillary Clinton's side, she was on Bernie Sanders' side in terms of their plan for a college tuition for kids, okay? We criticized Bernie Sanders for his policy on guns, and we said Hillary Clinton was better on that. Now, on the other issues, Bernie Sanders was more progressive than her, and in fact, almost everyone in the media would not only agree to that, but would criticize him for that. Oh, he's too liberal, too progressive, right? Right now, we're saying he should release his tax returns. Now, do you see them being equally critical of their own candidates? No, not only will they never, ever criticize their own candidates in an honest way, but they will demand that no one else ever criticize them. So, and when you say they're all progressive, what do you mean? More than half of them have said, no, we don't think we should scrap private insurance and do Medicare for all. And and to great applause from Anderson Cooper, CNN, etc. right? Okay, so that is, by definition, less progressive. And by the way, that's okay. You might be for a less progressive position. That doesn't mean that the more progressive position is right every time or right for you as a voter.
So
right?
Klobuchar came out and positioned herself. She very transparently positioned herself as the moderate candidate. And she's progressive?
She's not even claiming to be more progressive.
I mean, why are you insulting our intelligence, right? Not just our intelligence, but the intelligence of American voters. You think we're stupid?
And then you go out and then you do barrier breakers where you pay people to attack actual supporters of Bernie Sanders. The Bernie Sanders supporters were not paid. They were real people who actually cared. You bought people because your position was so unpopular, you couldn't find real supporters to do it. So you had to pay people $1 million to be trolls online. And now you write an article saying, Democrats, let's not eat our own? After you paid millions of dollars to eat our own and to viciously attack all progressives? And then in the middle of that article, you attack progressives. And then you ask us to never criticize your candidates. No deal, not even close. Well, we will do our job and we will correctly identify the policy positions of the candidates. Like what you see? Click the subscribe button below and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another video from the Young Turks.